Thank you for joining us on Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom, number 93. I'm your host, Greg Galb. We've got a great gang already here. We got Phil and Frank and Don and Jim and John and Luff and Mike and Dennis and Garth and other people. And we're going to talk about slot cars. As usual, we'll start off with show and tell. If you have a show and tell you'd like to share, please raise your virtual hand and I'll try to make sure we get to you. And if there are no more virtual hands for me to call on, feel free to wave your real hand and I'll probably miss you. Garth was the first to have his virtual hand up. Go ahead and unmute yourself and tell us what you want to share, Garth.
Got another one for Nomag Mike. This is my latest. Can you see that okay?
Yep.
Okay, this is my latest Frankenstein Nomag car. Okay, just totally made up out of a whole bunch of junk that I had laying around. So this body actually came from the very first slot car I ever owned in the scale anyway. And I turned it into a Nomag car just with a bunch of parts and stuff. And here's what it looks like on the inside. I got a 29 K slot.it motor and a 1 millimeter pod. Okay, that I had. All this stuff is 10 years old, and then this little adapter is Greg made for me. Okay, I got a couple of front and back aluminum wheels on it, CD design aluminum wheels. I got my now famous fishing line sinker cut in half and peened with a hammer, stuck glued in there for weight.
How much weight is that, Garth?
It's I don't know. I have no idea.
It's got to be at least 15, 20 grams maybe.
Yeah,
It looks like it.
quite a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And the front of this chassis has been broken off, okay, and it's glued together. And this is an old Lancia chassis. They don't even make this thing anymore. So this is what it looks like from the side. You can see how cattywampus the front of it is, okay, and that's what it looks like from underneath. And you see, I had an epoxy. This was a repair that was done years and years ago. This thing just been sitting in a box, and the whole front of it been carved off, and and it's not real straight or anything, but it's got silicone tires on it, and that's what it looks like on the track. Okay, I got some mirrors that I made up out of some pieces of plastic. A couple shots of it, and it goes like stink. Okay, so that's my latest Nomad car. And the reason I wanted to show it to Mike was I know he was having trouble with angle winders, okay? And this car, I tried it with I got some long can motors, but not a lot of lower RPM ones. So I tried it with a 38.5 motor long can, and I tried it with a 30 K long can, and neither one of them was worthy at all. But as soon as I stuck this adapter and just a regular standard slot.it can in it, the car just turned into magic. So anyways, I got two or three cars that use this configuration with this one-sided adapter, okay, and they're really good. The other car that I got it on is a Nissan R390, okay, and it really goes great. So just wanted to show that to Mike.
Thanks.
Garth, are those your wheels on it as well?
No, those are CD design wheels.
Okay. CB.
I'm sorry, CB design wheels, yeah.
CB, yeah.
Which are my which are now in the junk heap for me, because I got my own wheels. So
well, it's good that you were able to cobble that car together from basically a broken chassis and
just parts, okay. And it goes so good. It's just really nice. And I think that the key is the one millimeter pod that lowers it down, and just tuning the height of it. Okay, because it certainly isn't the greatest of chassis in the world. Okay, that's for sure. But it goes really, at least on my track, it goes really well as a Nomad car.
Well, your
My
track has a lot
question
of long straights on it and
A lot of long.
many really, really sharp corners, right?
Yes. So,
Plus it's Carrera, so it's nice. It's fairly flat. Not
with the long cans, that car with long can motors, I didn't have enough braking. Okay, you know what I mean? It would go like stink down the straightaway, but I couldn't break it into the sharp corners and stuff. So with going down to the 29K motor, okay, and that probably has something to do with the weight of it too, but it just turns the car from, you know, you can't hardly get around a corner to really quite good as a Nomad car. So
I think Phil had a question.
My real question, Garth, is you said you had a chassis that broke in half. What kind of epoxy are you using that actually doesn't crack up on the first crack?
that's a great question, Phil, and I'm going to tell you what I use. I use epoxy that is made by a company called Gulf Works, okay? And they're in Newark, Ohio, and you can buy their glues on the internet and on their website. And what I use is 15-minute quick set black epoxy for shaft, okay? And it is awesome because it dries fast, okay? It takes a little bit longer for it to cure, but it'll dry fast enough for you to have parts stuck together, okay? And it works as good on any chassis as of any glue I've used for anything, and you know, and that's what I use, okay?
And that company is Gulf Works.
Gulf Works, okay, and the epoxy you can buy. I use the quick set epoxy, okay?
Sure.
It's what the pros use at tournaments, okay? If they break a club or they want to change a shaft,
Sure.
use that particular kind, and that, you know, and most quick set epoxies are not very strong. This one is like buku strong, okay?
Yeah. And that's kind of why I was asking, you know, usually you're trying to get some type of epoxy. If it's quick set, because you're trying to make a repair and you don't want to try to jig it up to get it to hold together, then usually anything, a few minor crashes and it's starting to let go. So I'll have to get some of that. Thanks.
Yeah.
I put a link into the chat for golfworks.com, their epoxy page.
Oh, sweet.
I didn't find the specific product that Garth is referring to, but at least that'll get you started. Okay, well, does anybody else have any questions for Garth before we move on? Hearing none and seeing none, go ahead, John. What you got?
Well, here we go. We have liftoff. Let me just show you with Greg. There's your car.
Yay!
Hey.
Oh, wow.
Now this is the way it comes out of the mold. It's not trimmed or anything, so there are a bit of, you know, rough edges in the wheel, but that's literally how it pops out of the mold.
Very nice.
And you can see, actually, I'm really pleased with the
Great job.
with the rear.
Oh yeah, looks nice.
It's smoothed out really quite nicely. And there's the rear end.
Baby got back.
Yeah, it definitely needs liposuction, that's for sure.
That's some junk in the trunk.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's all turbo.
That's slim thick, the new look these days.
So there you go. And I cleaned up, you know, the door sills and the door lines. So we've got, and it pulls quite nicely. I'm really, really pleased with it now. And of course, you've got your clear vents. The vents need a little bit of dressing, but they actually do well. And there's number 1 and number 2 out of the mold. They pop out quite nicely.
Any idea what it weighs, John?
Oh, shoot. You know what? I didn't weigh it. Darn. Well, don't forget, there's
Well,
going to
that's
be
it.
glass.
Greg doesn't want it now. He's done.
No, this is parade laps only. This is not going in any kind of competition of any kind.
But yeah, because to your point, Dennis, it'll have glass as well. The top element of the wing has to be glued on because I did that as a separate piece. An interior. What else?
I just thought that was a bit more diplomatic than asking you how thin it was. How thin
it's yeah.
epoxy is.
Actually, it is. It's about as thin as the 356 that I made. Yeah.
John, if the wing's going to be glued on, you're going to glue it on after painting so you can get underneath it, right?
Yeah.
You could do that. Yeah. If you so choose. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Where did you get the display stand?
Oh.
Walmart,
Yeah, exactly.
Home Depot.
You know how tough it is to make it look like a roll of tape?
It must have been 3D printed.
Exactly. And if I could continue for just a moment, I have something for Dennis and for, of course,
For
Frank.
Frank, really.
Oh, is it for Frank, really?
Yeah, I mean, he was the guy who really started off the whole deal.
Oh, okay. Well, I apologize.
Dennis is going to get the original back. So
He is. Although, yeah,
it's in 3 pieces now, though, right?
Yeah.
It's you know what? No, well, here let me continue. It's really
I'm joking.
Oh, I'm not. It's like a as our friends across the pond would say, it's a bit of a crisp, or as I would say, a potato chip.
Wow.
So that's the state of the car before I poured the rubber in, and actually it's it's really nice. It's such a nice body. And then this is out of the mold. Now it came out of the mold, but it cracked right along. I don't know if you can see that line.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah. So what I did was I reinforced it underneath with some super glue.
Yeah.
As you can see the crack that
Okay.
formed. So what I can do for you, a couple of things. I mean, give you extra pulls if you like, or if you want to, I'll give you the original back, of course. But if you want a slush mold like this, I can try and make one for you as well. It's entirely up to you.
That one back and one of the new pulls will be all that I need. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. And then the other thing I was thinking of doing too was, since that crack sort of shows where there's a wee bit of weakness, either when I put this body back in for the second pour, building up that area in some way, shape, or form, or eroding the interior of the or the actual mold to give it a little more strength here, because it seems that it's really thin there, like right along here. It's really thin. But just something
Oh,
to
well.
consider.
So you don't have any pulls, or you don't have any castings from the mold of your own yet?
No, because I have to do the second pour. This has to go back into this mold, and then I'm going to do the interior plug.
So do you want him to strengthen that?
Oh, I see. I didn't realize it. I thought you'd done both sides already.
No, just one. Sorry, life got in the way this week a bit. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I can sort of try and reinforce that in some way, shape, or form before I do the second pour.
That's what I would do. Yeah.
Okay, and you said you didn't want any sort of mounting things. You're going to do that on your own, right?
Personally, yes, but
Yes.
I don't know what Frank might want.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because again, I can do 2 pours where I can, do a mock plug for myself, or whoever wants it on the side, or whatever needs to be, whatever people want. But yeah, no, it's progressing.
Good.
So there we go. And all
Nice, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And all the other parts
Yes,
for
thank
the
you very much.
935, all the molds are made. I just have to start shooting resin, including clear.
Good. Love to see progress on both of those projects.
Yeah.
So thanks for your show and tell. Does anybody have questions for John before we move on to Jim?
How are the RSKs doing?
Oh, actually, I'm working on the rear vents as we speak, and I actually have to redo it. I started off by trying to sort of splice in vents from the 935, and they look really clunky. And then I got a great idea. If you look at pictures of the RSKs, they're really very, very delicate lines for the grates. So I'm going to actually try and use copper wire, believe it or not. and see if that'll work. But I've got the outlines. It's just the rear end I have to work on. There's something about rear ends I have trouble with. I don't know.
All right, thanks for sharing, John, and for the questions, everybody. Looks like Jim is ready to go. What you got today, Jim?
I went to the hobby shop today, and which is sometimes a good thing, but it's never a cheap thing. So picked one of these up, which I think is a fairly new car, and going to try to build it out as a GT3 car for our class here, which at one track we run them with Carreras, and one track we run them by themselves with scale electrics, and one with just Carreras by themselves. So we're allowed to change a few things to make them a little bit faster. So working on that this week. And then the other one is we're starting a spec class. And I suggested let's run BMW M1s because they were a spec class back in the day with the Pro Car series. So we're going to run these pretty much dead stock except for rear tires. And you can change the motor to the 18K Predator. And so I think it'll be a fun class, just fairly simple, no guide changes, no nothing, just dead stock except for tires and motor if you want to.
And those are both Carrera?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a Carrera. This is a new one. I think it just came out in the recent weeks, or this livery anyway. And it just looks so good that I don't normally just buy slot cars just to buy them. I just usually buy them for specific purposes, but this one I just bought. And so I'm going to be working on that, the build out of both of these cars.
They're 132nd or 124?
Yes, correct. And they didn't have the they sold the analog one before I got there. So I just bought the digital one. So I'm just going to strip all the stuff out of it and turn it into an analog car. But it looks so good. Nice looking livery.
It's pretty.
So that's my project for the next 2 weeks. We've got races coming up. We've got 2 races coming up in the next 2 weeks. So
you might struggle to find tires for the rear of the BMW.
I got Paul Gage. Paul Gage has them, and I just got them today in the mail. So I've got a couple sets of Paul Gage urethanes.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
so I'm pushing for urethanes because they're easy to get, and it's a spec tire. Some of the other guys want to run open rear tires, but I'm hoping they'll agree with me and go for urethane spec tire.
You can grind down. Is it legal for you to grind down the center section to get that extra piece down so you can use normal tires on it?
In that class, no. In our Carrera, in our GT3 class, which the Ferrari will be built to, we can actually put aluminum wheels on it.
Oh, okay.
So that one's a no-brainer because it has those weird wheels where they're stepped, where the inside of the outside is taller. And so they're allowing us to do aluminum wheels on the Trans Am cars and the GT3 cars, just to make it easier. And so, but the M1 does not have the stepped wheels because it's an older build or an older model. In there, they're still current, but it's an older design. And so that's just a Paul Gage, just slip it on and go for it.
You can probably get an easy $20 out of that chip that you're not going to use.
Well, it was funny because it's only $10 more for the digital car than the analog car, as opposed to scale electrics, which, well, first of all, they don't make them that way. You have to buy the chip separate. But
plus, it has lights. The digital car has lights, but the analog doesn't.
Yeah, just take the wiring harness out and put it on eBay because I've been doing a lot of eBay lately.
Perfect. You basically just paid for any upgrades you do for that car.
Yep, for sure. So sounds good. That's it for me.
All right. Anybody got questions for Jim before we move on? Hearing and seeing none. Mike, you are next, sir.
And this is for Garth.
Right.
I have the Shell 962.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's nice. It hasn't been run yet. I had a problem with it. You can see I've if you look at the intakes on the side there, maybe up close a little bit, I've straightened those out. What happened is the interior of the car must have been designed for Lilliputians, and then they inserted Dan Gurney as a driver. And so consequently, the driver's head is bucked up straight against the top of the car where the window comes in, and you can't really change it. I had to take it apart and muck about with it. And then I knocked the window out and really screwed it up. So I have a clouded side window now, but other than that, I love the livery on the car. It's really, really nice.
Is that a brand new slot car that you just?
It's a
bought?
brand new slotted car, yeah.
Okay, so I thought you quit buying brand new slot cars.
I didn't say that.
This week's slot car, eh? That guy.
Well, there's more coming next week. For those who,
Surprise.
yeah, really, for those who were wondering whether you can get the Scale Auto Formula Ones, the generic Formula Ones, you can. They are in stock at 132slot.us.
Mike,
So-
can we see the bottom of that Porsche?
Sure. It's a standard inline.
So it's inline, okay.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
their Group C cars are inline.
And I'm going to run it. I'm going to run a class of those. I'm going to run one with the inline and one with the sidewinder to see how it goes.
And now it's no mag for no mag?
No mag.
No mag.
Yeah, in fact, we did all 3 races no mag this week.
Should try using a 1 millimeter pod.
Yeah, that's all I've got.
Oh, okay.
I use the 1 millimeter pod also for the long cans.
Okay.
That I use in the sideways cars. So I'm converting a set of Group 5 sideways to the lower power, the Baby Raptor motor, and I'm going to use that as another class for the 3 of us. So
Is that so?
Group 5 class.
So you got 2 other Porsches that you can use for this 3 set?
Well, I have 2 other Porsches that I can use. I'm not going to use it as a spec Porsche. I'm going to use it as a spec Group C. And I'm going to change the Group C spec. One set is inline, one set is sidewinder, and one set is angle winder with the Baby Raptor motor, and I'm going to see how they go. So
that's cool.
So I've got enough Group C cars. I love them. They're really, really great cars. I did have a Toyota 88C that I actually gave away because it's the STP livery, and I bought it on a deal, and I really don't like the livery. So I gave it away to one of the guys so he can have something to work on for the class. And I bought a new 88C that I like the livery of better.
That 88C is really nice. I love it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful car. I've seen them in the.
I want to race with Mike so you can give me a car.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he's got plenty of cars, so
Well, essentially, I do that. I make the cars up. I'll tell you, it's a full-time job.
By the looks of
Keeping
it,
up with
Frank
the
has enough
classes.
cars too.
Pardon me?
Don't we all have enough cars?
By the looks of Frank, he has enough cars too.
Never enough. Never
Look at them all behind him there.
enough.
The rule is N+1.
Yeah.
That's a great segue into a video that Gary Skip recently put on his slot car racing YouTube channel. I'll try to remember to put a link in the description. But basically, he was providing tips to people who are new to the hobby but are, getting into the hobby, right? Where should you spend your hobby money to get the most bang for your buck? And he started off with, first of all, you're going to buy more cars. Everybody buys more cars. But near the beginning, after you've gotten a few cars, don't just keep buying more cars. Buy a decent controller. If you're still using set controllers, just even if it's a Parma ohm controller, not adjustable, it's still going to be better than a set controller. And if you can spring for something that's got adjustments, all the better. And then, get an adjustable voltage power supply, even if it's just like the Polycar with the little dial in the back that you turn with a key. If you can change the voltage, that's money well spent. And then he goes on to talk about a variety of things like tools and skirts for your plastic track and stuff like that. But it's like, yes. One of the points he made was you'll not only are you going to enjoy every car that you get after you buy those things? But all of your cars that you've already got are going to have completely new life to them, because you're going to have so much more control over how they drive with a decent controller and decent power, that they'll be brand new cars to you for a good amount of time. And then he's like, don't start buying motors and stuff like that. Get tires, right? Because the most important thing for your car is tires, right?
And
You can't overmotor a car if the tires don't hook up, right? So what's the point of putting in a hotter motor if your tires don't hook up, right? Fantastic video. I'm going to put a link in the description for sure. And now we can move on with some more show and tell. Mike, I'm assuming you're done.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. And Big Den is next. Go ahead, Big Den.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you may be in the world or the galaxy. Mike's our rehearsal that we did earlier segued beautifully into generic F1, because last week I was talking about the couple of generic F1s I've got, and so I've actually done some work on doing the decals on my NSR Formula One. So if I could do a share. Right there.
Coming in.
yep, here it comes.
There we
is.
go. Nice.
Yeah, okay, so this is a bit of a variation on the, well, I think about 1983 Tyrrell 012 colour scheme. Obviously, because the cars are vastly different shapes, I've had to use a bit of poetic license in where I put the decals on. So these decals, as I was talking, I think with Dennis and a few of the others after last week's recorded session, these are from Kevin Osborne in England. I'll tell you what, taking the photos, they look worse in the photos than what it does in real life. It's brought up every little blemish, and it's got spots on the tires that I couldn't even see in real life sitting here beside me. So it's not finished yet. It's not finished, as you might notice. The front wing is still needs a bit of an extra respray. I decided to do the suspension rather than in black. I decided to do them in a gunmetal color, just for a bit of variation. And just another one there. That's the other side view. And I painted the wheel inserts gold. Again, just a bit of a variation. A lot of them just leave them black, I think. So by next time I'm on, I should probably have the mirrors and the drivers sitting in there, and the aerial and the roll bar and whatever else needs to go in. So we'll like John Kitt does, a work in progress from week to week. So that's that one. A little bit further on.
Quick question, Dan. I'm not a big racing, real life racing fan, so I don't know the answer to this question. But does that kind of car only need the number on the nose? Does it not need numbers on the side anywhere?
Oh, look, I've got numbers to put on the. Yeah, they got numbers on the usually on the rear wing.
Okay.
Yeah, they will be there. I do have them. So
they usually go on the wing uprights.
Okay.
Yeah, the original car had an extension. The wing sort of a smaller horizontal section here, and the number was in. I'll have room for some sponsor decals on there as well, because the number, if you can see from the front view, the number is pretty tiny. So the next sort of I haven't done any decals on my Polycar Monoposto yet, but one of the other decal sets I got was that famous flop from the mid-90s, Andrea Moda. I was a bit disappointed how the colours of the decals came out on the black car. They just seemed to be a little bit wishy-washy, but even after they dried, so maybe using certain coloured decals on a black ground isn't recommended. So I think there's just one more shot of that there, just pointing the other way.
You might be able to double up the decals, and that might help.
Yeah, well, if you think that I'm going to be that accurate to be able to do that, you know.
Well,
you've
it's
got a lot more-
expensive too, right? They're not cheap.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. and it's just, this is just a generic scale electric body from
Are
the
those
mid-90s.
Patos decals?
No, they're Kevin Osborne. Kevin Oz
Okay.
in England. That's Garth, is it? Yeah.
Yeah. I need to
okay.
get an NSRF one. They're cool.
Yeah.
I want to
And,
get the Ferrari one. If anyone has one of those to sell, I know they've been well sold out, but I'd love to get one of those.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll stop the share there. And Garth just earlier on was talking about that epoxy he uses. Now, I could never ever claim to be a professional golfer, but when it came to breakages, I was probably pretty professional at that. I would have had to buy that epoxy by the barrel, I reckon, to fix the clubs that I managed to modify over the years. So, and that'll do me for now.
All right, thanks, Big Dan. Does anybody have any questions for Big Dan before we move on to our next
I just have a comment with the golf. I've also gone to golf shops and got good lead weight to add to the different types of lead weight, because they use that in golf training and stuff. So that's another thing you can look for.
I just generally get sheet lead from a plumbing supplies shop in my city here, and I use I've got a pair of very good tin snips. You can cut it quite accurately. So
nice.
Yeah. Okay then.
All right, good stuff. Thanks, Big Dan. And Jim has his hand up again. What you want to share, Jim?
Somebody was asking about the NSR Ferrari, and I didn't see who it was.
What's Garth?
I think that was John M.
John M. Yeah. Hey.
John M.
But yeah, the pricing on those are kind of high. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Beatrice car and then
Okay.
just respray it red, because it's pretty much all red already. So it's not going to. It's gonna be easy to cover up the markings on it. And
Yeah.
then use the decal sets and build a Ferrari.
I
There's
was
another way to
thinking
do it too, and that would be to
Yeah.
buy a plain red one.
Yeah.
And
Or,
buy a set of Atalaya decals.
Dennis could sneak a couple out of Electric Dreams for us at the old retail.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we have some, but they're
Yeah.
super expensive.
Yeah,
that's
they're
an
like
easy way. I do
129.
have the Beatrice one already, so I'm just going to repaint it and redo it.
Yeah.
Because
Do they have
I got
body
the
kits for those?
I got the helmets from Electric Dreams the other day.
Oh yeah, those are cool.
Those things are
The
awesome.
Lagos. Yeah,
What was
those-
that question, Garth?
I was wondering if they have a white body kit,
Oh, they have a red one. I mean,
Yeah, they have a red one.
I
Yeah.
know they
there's a red
Just-
body kit, and
I mean,
that's
just-
like $72. And,
yeah, but
and
can you just buy
I
the
just have
body?
to check on the. Let me check. I'm checking right now.
Oh, you just want the body, not the whole
Yeah, I'm
kit.
just wondering
decals.
if they sell the body.
You
Oh,
can
just
buy the
the-
bodies.
just
I'm not
the
sure if anybody
body.
has them or not.
Sneak us out some, Dennis.
So, so NSR does sell just the body kit, not
I'm
That I
pretty
know
sure
of.
they do.
I don't see that.
If I could butt in, the answer is yes, because there is an Australian site that's showing just we pay say up around a bit over $100 for a full car.
Yeah.
This guy's got 5 or 6 different body kits, just the body at $45
Oh, cool.
Australian.
Oh.
So they are available as a separate item. Well, they are here anyway. So
Finding
I
them,
assume
finding
they
them
are
is
in-
another thing, though.
yeah.
Maybe they are. Yeah,
could
I haven't
be,
checked
yeah.
it too. I'll look. But yeah, Atalaya have a number of decals for Ferraris, Alain Prost and Michele Alboreto and a couple of others
Nice.
that you could use on the red car if you wanted a Ferrari.
I like the Marlboro McLaren too, but that was only a special set, right?
Yeah, but then again, you buy the white kit and
Yeah.
and
The
a set
thing
of
is, I could
Atalaya
do some
decals.
stuff, but you can never make it as good as they make it. It's just so nice.
I mean, some people
I
can.
have this perfectionism thing, so I would probably ruin it.
Except I think I did a better job on the Lotus than they did, because it's the actual color instead of yellow.
Mhm.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm going to put in a pre-order on the scale.
Yeah, there is a body kit. There's a white body kit, $28.99.
There you
Nice.
go, Garth.
NSR 1521 is the part number.
And I spoke to Alan, and he said we could expect to see the Scale Auto F1s with delivery sometime in the summer. He just got the white kits you guys talked about last week, but I want to get that Marlboro one. That looks cool.
All right, Jim, is that it, or did you have something else you wanted to share? All right. So it looks like we are ready to.
I got something, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead, John.
Okay, I'm going to go with something different today. Some real slot racing cars rather than novelty cars. So what do I got to do here? Share screen. Okay. I hope this works. It doesn't look right now. All right, I'm having a security issue, so I guess I'll pass and maybe come back later.
Yeah,
it says
it's going to be your end, buddy. It's not on my end.
No, I know.
Okay. So you can come back and share what you want to share whenever you're ready. I'm sure we'll have time for it later on. Since it doesn't look like there's anybody else who wants to do show and tell, we'll go ahead and do Club Corner. Does anybody have any past, present, or future club activities they'd like to share? Michael, I'm going to call on you and have you talk about the suspension that you were working on.
Okay, as I talked to the guys earlier about this, but I put the factory Thunderslot suspension on all of the cars that I've got from Thunderslot because it was worth about 0.3 of a second overall. Plus, it made the cars much more easily controllable. There wasn't as much breakaway at very quick movements. It would be much more gradual driving it, and than it would be otherwise. And here's a picture of the side of the suspension. You can see the foam. It's essentially a.
Can you squish it to show us the squishiness?
Let's see if I can.
Like put your finger under the bottom of it, right under the suspension, and then push down on the pod.
Yeah, it's so flexible, it's difficult to show.
Okay, yeah. Do they have different sponge densities for different sponge strengths?
They do not. You control it mainly by compressing the sponge more.
Yeah, so compression.
Yeah, it's just the amount of compression that you get. I found that, at least for now, I haven't done a lot of work on it because I just got them in on Monday. And the softest setting works well on Scalextric track. So that seems to be a good thing. And I'll tell you, it really made a difference. The two of the cars that we had were very much at ends of the spectrum as far as the ability to drive them. One of them was much slower than the other one. Well, it brought the car right up into so that they were pretty even all the way around. And since I'm using spec motors on them, it makes them all real even. And so we had really, really good racing. We finished after 120 laps, we finished within a half a lap. And it was all down to fueling. And one guy ended up third because he had a false start accidentally. And it was, oh crap, but it cost him the race essentially because the other two of us were neck and neck and swapping the lead back and forth on pit stops. It was really nail biter. It really was, and you really, really had to focus.
Yeah.
So
cool.
It was fun. I enjoyed it.
That's the first time I've seen a relatively big chunk of compressible sponge material as a suspension. I've seen springs and magnets and things like that before, but I don't. Dennis, does anybody know of anybody else that uses a big?
I think I've seen like dampers, maybe.
I mean, they're serving the same purpose that the magnets and the springs do, but
it probably has a little bit more damping than either of the other versions would.
Yeah,
that's. Yeah, I think the progressiveness of the foam, which gets tighter and tighter as you compress it, whereas a spring just is a linear compression generally. It's much more linear than the foam would be.
Well,
something else, because I use a lot of the spring stuff, and I've never done any of the foam. But after watching you move that up and down, I've just put some in my shopping cart. The well, I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting because the spring, when you compress it, it holds energy and wants to come back. The foam is not going to want to come back as hard.
Yeah, Courtney, to your point, that's why in the original minis they used those rubber horns, right?
Yeah.
I bought a whole bunch of the foam inserts too, and I'm gonna try those with just nuts on the top of them and see how that works too. With the Thunder Slots, they give you the whole setup with the foam and the screws and all that, but I've got a bunch of long screws and some nuts that go on the 2mm long screws, and I'm going to give that a shot on some of my other cars and see how that works, because I had put suspension on the NSR cars that I had before, but it didn't seem to make such a dramatic difference. This was truly dramatic when you watch the way the cars perform. So I really liked it.
Be sure to use a washer on those screws with just nuts on the end.
Oh, you're right. I use a 5mm silicone, or 5/10 millimeter rather, silicone rubber washer underneath the screw along with that. So at the head of the screw, I use the 5/10 millimeter silicone washer.
Okay,
along with the foam. So I've got it on both sides that way.
I was saying when you start retrofitting some cars with foam, but without the plastic caps that go on the Thunder Slot, you're just going to use a nut and long screws. I was thinking the nut might be a little bit small. You might want to put a washer under the nut on the top of the foam.
I ordered some of NSR makes cups for their springs that are approximately the same size as the foam, and I'm going to try using those along with it. The only bad thing about that is it doesn't have the pin to hold it in place while you turn it, so you got to take the body off to adjust it. But other than that, it works fine. Yeah.
Cool beans. Anybody else got any questions for Mike's new foam suspension before we move on? Hearing and seeing none. Frank has his virtual hand up. What's up, Frank? You're muted still.
There we go. Just want to let everybody know Electric Dreams is having its actual first regular race this Saturday. We were supposed to have one last month, but because of COVID, we postponed it. There's been 2 enduros, but this will be a regular race where we're racing Group 5 and F1 and with rules from Electric Dreams and Marco. I think Marco had wanted to be on this chat today, but he's in Germany checking out slot car places and car museums. It's 1 a.m. there, so I imagine he's asleep. Lazy guy. But anyway, I'm looking forward to it on Saturday. That's all I had.
All right, some future clubbing to do. And anybody in that area?
Marco posted a lot of cool stuff on Instagram. He went to like some museums, the Porsche Museum, the Mercedes Museum. He showed a lot of out of cottage type businesses creating some cool stuff. It's definitely a good follow, Marcos. Besides Electric Dreams themselves.
Yeah, and he is back.
Yeah, I saw the custody coming through customs. It was a couple of days ago, I think.
Frank, you may see a contingent from Northern California coming down in March or April.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Seeing you guys.
Good stuff. All right. Thanks, Frank. And John M., you got your virtual hand up. Are you ready to share again?
Yep. Don't ever upgrade your software. That's what happened. I'm like, it always worked 2 times, and then I just upgraded my operating system. That's what happened.
Yep.
Okay, so here we go. Let me know when you could see it.
Looks good.
All right, so this is a diorama I made with MRC figures. I think it's 2 different sets. And you can see they don't have faces because I haven't gotten as good as Frank Peter yet. So just some more views of that. And then this is one I made just with a box car, and then I bought the Boxer Carrera figures and then I screwed them in, and I made this like little diorama within the thing. And I think, yeah, it's a Michael Schumacher car, I believe. So there's some more pictures of that. And I love when I first bought my first Carrera car back, I think it was like 2000. That mirror thing is phenomenal. Look at that reflection. It's so cool.
That's cool. It is cool.
That packaging thing. So that's that. And then this is something I started on Instagram. I title my Instagram stuff. So I made a new, and I sort of make like a series. This is called My Girl Has Slot Cars. So this is one of my wife's slot cars. So her name's Mary Jo, and I put the Pink Panther on, and it's a slotted. I don't know if it's a 962 or 956, but I think it's a 956.
It's a 956.
Yeah, 56. And she has her own MRRC figures. She has like a Vanquish and some. This is the corkscrew section of the track I tried to mimic, and it looks pretty good here. You can see it looks pretty dramatic. And these are just 4, Trans Am cars, and they're 3 of them are Scalextric, and the CUDA is SCX. So now Scalextric has that, but I had already bought in the Scalextric. And I have a hard time on my track with Scalextric motors. I don't know if you guys do too. And I have a whole box of failed ones. So what I did on this one, there's the corkscrew there. I'll show you guys in a sec. So these are the cars. So they're all upgraded. The Big Red, which is a great car, has super wheels. The yellow Mustang has CB design wheels, and they all have like slotted gears. So they're like upgraded. And underneath you can see, so now the bottom right is this SCX, and you can see I carved in a space for the Sidewinder motor pod. So it would be, running conjunction with these, the same motor, the same configuration, and they pretty much 3 of them have the nice slotted gear. And there it is. Okay, there's a better picture of it. So I sort of cut that away, and then I screwed it in with some nylon screws. Oh, and this is the last one. So back in the day, my Scalextric Classic track was fully, had a lot of scenery and lights. So I'm going to go, I have all that. I redid my track, right, with the SCX, what is it? SCX Sport. I'm sorry, Scalextric Sport. And now I'm going to add back all the lights and a lot of the scenery and stuff. So that's my next project. And that's it.
Cool. Looking forward to seeing your sport track. Was the classic track the same layout, or did you change the layout?
It's a little bit different. Yeah, it's a little bit different, but it still has, the overpass. I think I did better on the overpass the second time. I made it a little bit longer. That was tough. See, I think it's fine, but when I would have club guys come, they didn't like it. Like, I'm like, you just have to go slower over it. It's like anything else on a racetrack.
Yeah.
But I also had in the beginning squeeze tracks. You could see them in the back there. Those SCX squeeze tracks, and some guys like it, some guys didn't. But my new track, and I showed it before, is really set up for club racing with, the whole idea of marshaling and having reachable areas. And then the idea I told last time, I didn't really want to put the lights, is because people lean on them and break everything. But I'm really not doing club racing, so I'm gonna relight it up. I have a lot of nice lights I made, and I have 3 of the Lionel lights, the big train lights, and then I have a long strip of lights I made. So I'll show pictures when it's done.
Cool. Looking forward to it.
All right. If you could unshare me.
Yep. All right. Thank you, John, for sharing that. And it looks like we don't have any show and tell. We don't have any more Club Corner. I'll go ahead and pick out a topic. I haven't gotten topic suggestions for a while, but this one was still in my bucket. And it is code of ethics or etiquette while racing, marshaling, or rules between heats, etc. So just kind of a general good practices for group/club racing overall. And what does your club do that you think is a good thing that you'd like other clubs to do? Do you have specific things that you're having problems with that you'd like suggestions for? I could go on and on about the 2 clubs that I race with, but I certainly want to hear from other people. Frank has already raised his virtual hand, so I'll let Frank talk about something on that topic.
Well, the first thing that came to mind when you said that is with our far out club, which is the magnet club. You race once, you marshal twice. So that way marshaling is always taken care of. Or in the instance where last weekend we were racing on a 3-lane track, we marshaled 3 times. And there's some tracks though you don't have to worry about it because everybody wants to watch. Like Stephen Farrow Jones' track is the scenery. You can spend hours looking at all his different scenarios on that track. But I like that idea where you race once, you marshal twice.
Do they take a lot of reminding? Because that's one of the problems at some nights the guys will start off fairly good, right? But then later on, you'll half of the group is over there shooting the shit, and you've got corners that are empty, and you need people at them, and you're like, hey, marshals.
Well, but what's nice about that is you know who raced last, so you can just call their names. You race last, get your butts up here.
Is there alcohol involved?
Pardon?
Is alcohol involved?
Is alcohol involved?
Always.
Always.
not by me, but most everybody else, yes.
I mean, there's usually some beers in a nearby fridge at most of my club races. Sometimes a little bit more than that, depending on who's hosting.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's. I don't blame the alcohol because most of the guys they'd rather have their reactions tip top, right? They don't want to be sullied by any alcohol. So if they have any drink at all, it's like they're sipping on one beer for the 3 hours that we're there. So like that's not having any effect on.
Not as far out. They like to dull their senses. I mean, I wish I could still beat them, but they're still too alcohol.
So yeah, so some kind of written or unwritten rule where you are trying to encourage your racers to also provide marshaling, not to just race and then go back to their pit box.
Exactly.
Yeah. So something like that is always good. Mike, did you have an idea for club etiquette?
Well, talking about it a little bit, one of the things that we do is for someone who pulls out of the pit too early and causes a crash, they lose half a lap. We just take them and put them on the opposite side and they lose that half of that lap. Yeah. Or actually 3/4 of it, come to think of it. Yeah. So that works. And generally the guy who causes the crash, because we use track calls. I mean, it's just the easiest for us because we only have the 3 of us. So there's no marshals or anything.
Yeah, you don't have marshals.
Right. We don't have marshals. So we use track calls. And generally speaking, if the guy who, runs into the back of another one, knocks him off, gets put back a certain distance behind, the next corner or something like that for doing that. So unfortunately, I'm the biggest defender of that because I have the worst finger. So it's like, oh, crap, sorry, and lose it that way.
Yeah, so some penalties for poor racing sportsmanship or just careless driving or other mistakes made while driving. Yeah, especially for digital, that's not a bad thing to think about. For my club, we basically decided that a crash is a crash, and it is what it is. But definitely for the exiting the pit, there's no question who's responsible for a crash when it's somebody exiting the pit into somebody on the raceway. So that person always gets penalized in some way, and the person who got knocked off, even if they, for every other type of crash, it's, well, you're off. That's just how racing is. But for that particular kind of crash, if the person on the racing line gets knocked off too, he doesn't get any penalty of any kind, and gets put back wherever is most appropriate for that particular case. Frank, you had another thing?
Yeah, we raced at a track the last 2 weeks in a row because it's just the way dates went. And the first race, we had a situation, there's one corner that in the outside lane coming onto the straight, that if you don't hit it, if you hit it wrong, you're on the floor. So in the race I was in, the gentleman on that lane came off, hit the floor. Before he put his car back on, he cleaned his tires, and we raced on. And I went, wait a minute, that doesn't cut it, guys. And so that day, we kind of talked about it. We said, okay, if he gets to his tires and the other two drivers do. The next week, though, when it came up, there was a different person in the room when that came up. And actually, it was Eddie Shore came up. You know what? No cleaning of tires before putting back on the track. But if he wants to stop on green and clean his tires, that's up to him. And I thought it was a great idea because it's like Eddie was saying, he says, it's not only unfair to the people in that same race, but it's unfair to the rest of us who haven't raced yet to clean your tires in the middle of a race. And I thought it was really interesting. We all had discussion about it, nice discussion, and it was settled on that. So it worked out nicely.
Yeah, that's a good one. You know, in for my analog club, we basically, since we race crash and burn, the cars are often sitting out. They don't go right back on the track. So after a car is crashed, we grab it and we pick it up and we either hold on to it if the minute's almost over, or we set it aside. And so the rule is set the car on its side, and if it falls over, make sure it's on its back so that the tires remain clean. But because we also have tires do not get touched between heats. You know, when your car is ready to race, you put it in park firm and it's there, and you do not touch your tires. The closest we get to kind of an acceptable tire manipulation is if the car were to hit the floor, we would use air to blow off any large pieces of dust that stuck to the tire. But yeah, there's no actual cleaning. You know, if you do the thumb and lick, nope, no thank you, sir. If you do the dauber or to any kind of actual dust or grime removal of any kind, or chemicals of any kind, no sir. But the clean under green is a rule that some other clubs have had. I know sometimes Alan does that for his various races. That's kind of a rule at my track because I have basically a variety of cleaning stations at all the drivers, cleaning methods at all the driver stations. I got, lint rollers and wet pad and powered slots and everything at every station. You can clean under green. If you want to take your car off the track in the middle of the race to get whatever's off the tires, go for it. But not between heats, not even while your car is in the pits, right? Because that's time that's part of the race, right? But yeah, but we don't have that. It's like an unwritten rule, John.
Are there some people who actually do clean their tires under green?
I've seen it. Yeah. I think during the Electric Dreams video that was the Electric Dreams race, I saw people cleaning under green.
That was in the Enduro, yeah.
In the Enduro, you would have to.
Go ahead, Dennis.
In a 3-minute race, you probably don't need to, but
yeah.
Anything that I know about that is if you were put on the floor through no fault of your own, your tires are all screwed up as a result, you should really be allowed to clean them.
Right.
But if you're on the floor as a result of your own misdeeds, that's a different story, I guess.
It depends on the club. I mean, there are some clubs, of all scales that allow cleaning before every single heat. And I think Jim was going to say in HO, it's common to go ahead and clean your tires before you put your car down at every heat.
Yeah, the clubs in Northern California allow cleaning tires between heats.
Yeah.
And if you want green flag cleaning, you can. Usually it's not a benefit because it takes too long in a 3-minute heat.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're going to lose a couple of laps.
Depending on how quick your cleaner is.
We clean between heats as well.
You should see the guys when they run those big 24-hour races in Michigan. and because they all run on silicon tires, they have cleaner boards that are probably about a foot long, and it's just a board like a couple of inches wide with a slot all the way down it, and double-sided tape both sides of the slot, and they will hold the board, pick up the car, and just run it through there and put it straight back on the track. I mean, they can clean the tires front and rear in literally like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
There is one class in HO where they actually put double stick, the cellophane double stick tape on the track.
Oh, wow.
So as you go over it, your tires are cleaned every lap.
Every lap.
That's the HO gravity cars, which have zero downforce and a lot of power.
Yeah.
And silicone tires too. So they actually do put tape on the track.
Yeah, the racing I did in Wisconsin last year, it was silicone tires and cleaning the tires before every heat. Clean under green if you want. So you want your tire cleaner guy to be good at grabbing your car and putting it across the tape and putting it back in the correct slot, correctly the right direction, very quickly. But on his digital track that he had set up, which is half the reason I was there, is he put the double stick tape on the pit lane. So if you wanted to go clean your tires, you had to go through the pit lane to do that.
Have you talked to him recently?
It's been a little while.
He's had a hell of a 2 weeks. He had a heart attack, and he got delivery of his new Corvette.
In which
Corvette
order?
first or heart attack first?
Heart attack first.
Oh, dear.
That's too bad.
Maybe that's because he got the bill before he got the car.
He's been waiting about 1.5 years on this order for whatever reason. I'm not sure the details, but he just got it. In fact, I don't think he's taken delivery, but he's got pictures of it at the dealer. It just came in.
Yeah, he was talking about that last year.
Yeah, so he just got it.
Wow.
Well, good for him. Hopefully he makes a quick recovery from his heart attack, and is well. There's lots of etiquette, racing rules, kinds of things that we can talk about. Frank, did you have anything else?
Well, we have 2 3-hour team races a year, and the teams are just picked out that day and made up. And we will clean under green in those because you're going, I think it's 4 minutes, you're driving 15 minutes each. And so at that point we do, in 15 minutes, you got to clean your tires every so often.
Yeah.
Even if the track's clean, it still picks up stuff. So we'll do a lot of cleaning of tires under green on that.
How about you, Big Dan?
Yeah, well, one of my laments after 50 plus years of chasing these little things round and round tracks is I developed a little witty saying a while back. It seems that we have more slack time than track time. There always seems to be excuses of people to not be ready to start their race or not be ready to go to a marshalling position. And just my 2 main places where I race in Tasmania is that when we race in Hobart, you start on a lane and you go through and you finish your rotation, and then when you finish your fourth lane, your car is put where it's finished, so that if people are on even laps, they can quickly see who's got more sections to determine places. A lot of the time when we run up in Launceston, we run some sort of random round robin thing where you might be going 3 heats without being on the track at all, depending on how many are in the field. So people, rather than leave their car where it finishes on the track, they take it to the pits and clean it, so they can be out there in the pits and not ready to start marshalling when the next heat is about to go. So that's always the other thing. That again, after all those years, there are always going to be good marshals and bad marshals. That's just a fact of life. Some people don't seem to have the attention span to be able to focus on 3 cars going around a track for 3 minutes. There's always got to be other things going on. And the other thing that some of the focus on corner marshalling, we had a while back, we had a bit of bad blood going around because when you write in a race report that you would have run second if it hadn't have been for so and so's poor marshalling on the top corner. There was, and I often think that there's far too much focus on poor marshalling than on good marshalling. Compliment good marshals to make it something that people want to achieve rather than awarding points for bad marshalling.
I completely agree with that. Yeah, and you know, regardless of how good the marshalling is, you lost time by crashing, right?
Exactly.
So even the best marshalling is still worse than not crashing. So
Yeah.
don't blame the marshal because you crashed. You crashed, right? Be thankful that he got you back into the slot at all.
Yeah.
And then thank him for it, no matter how long it took. There've been times in the last couple of weeks, unfortunately, where my car kept getting put on the wrong slot, or it was in a multi-car accident, so it was the last car to get put on, and I'm just like, blue lane, blue lane, blue lane. Thank you. And no matter how long it takes, thank the marshal, because as a marshal, no matter how good or bad you are, there are times where you've done a fantastic job. Just the car came off, you were focused, you grabbed it quickly, the guide was in the right position, you knew what lane it goes back in, you put it back in the lane and sent it on its way, and it was over in a second or 2 seconds, and you're like, yes, please, thank you. And if the other guys notice, they might say, hey, good, that was a great marshalling job you did.
Yeah, we do.
But then the same
you
person.
have a poor marshal out there. Everybody knows it. So you just have to make sure you don't crash in that corner.
But even the best marshals can have an off crash,
That's
right? I might be
slippery fingers.
Exactly. I might be just as focused on the turn. I knew exactly which car came out first and which cars go back in their slots and all that, and they just don't want to go back in. I'm like, what the heck is going on with this car? And then of course, if it's a multi-car accident, you're trying to get the one car back on that you thought should go back in first for whatever reason, but the other guy's just like rolling his eyes and gritting his teeth and whatever. So great tips for etiquette is, no matter how long it takes to get your car back on, thank the marshal for getting your car back on. Thank you, sir, very much. Thank you. May I have another? And when you're the marshal, don't worry about how fast you are. Focus on your turn or turns, and focus on accuracy. Take an extra beat before you just jam a car into what lane you think it's in. And then shrug your shoulders if somebody's getting mad at you about it, because remember, it was their fault for crashing in the first place. Or blame the guy who crashed into them, but not the marshal.
We have one gentleman that I race with at more than one club, and he likes to yell at the marshals, get it in. And I'll always try to do my best to get it in as quick as I can. But after he's yelled at me like that, I'll say, you know what? Yell again, and your car won't get touched. And he stops yelling for the rest of the day.
That was the other thing I meant to say is most marshals are not trying to maliciously ruin your race, right? If they screw it up, they might be trying too hard to do it quickly. So, cut them a break. Nobody's standing there going, I'm going to screw up somebody's race. I mean, maybe somebody is, but most of the guys aren't standing there going, I'm going to screw up so-and-so's or somebody's race because I'm doing bad or whatever the case may be. Most of the time, they're trying to get the cars back in the slot as quickly and accurately as possible. We've all been there. I think I heard Big Dan, you were going to say something else.
Yeah. I mean, I must be a dentist thing. I must confess that I'm fond of having an ale, while while racing's on when I'm marshalling, and but I don't go 3 k's down the road to the nearest pub to have it. So and the other thing is that if I just share a screen, it has absolutely no effect on me, and which I will demonstrate. As you can see, I'm perfectly in control.
I think you cheated a little bit.
Well, wait a minute. That if you're in Australia, that's right side up.
Yeah, I was saying, get down under, that's about right. Yeah.
Looks perfectly normal to him.
Yeah. And if you go into the bathroom, you'll probably find the water's turning the other way down the
Yeah.
plug hole too.
Yeah, first thing I checked when I went to the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's
Okay.
a lie.
Yep. And Dennis, you've got your hand up. You got something to add?
A couple of things about turn marshalling. Number one, the aggrieved car gets put on first. That's something that a lot of people don't think about. Right? Two cars come off, one takes the other off. They grab the nearest one, they put it on. 9 times out of 10, that's the guy who should have gone on second or third or last. That's about all for turn marshalling. The other thing is during practice, you're talking about etiquette. During practice, never practice without a body on the car. This is not so much of a deal for us who run plastic cars and home track cars. But when you're running 124 scale cars, you don't want to be running just a chassis around the track because people can't see it, and it's not a good thing. Number 2, when it comes to practice, when you're done, unclip your controller and walk away. Don't leave your controller hanging on the driver's stand particularly if you ever want to come back and find it again. That's just a matter. There are a lot of guys who do that sort of thing. They walk away. I'm just going to change opinion. I'm just going to put another body on the car. I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do that. And then they get caught up with something, or somebody brings donuts, and the next thing you know, that lane has been occupied by a controller that hasn't been used for 20 minutes. So when you walk away, take your controller with you.
Yeah,
that's it.
And with those metal chassis cars going super fast, you could get physically injured if you're putting your car down on the adjacent lane or picking your car up from the adjacent lane and it goes flying by.
Yeah.
Get pretty.
Yeah, you got to watch very carefully for that.
Yeah, and good one about trying to put the aggrieved car. That's a great word. Back on first. I'll admit that I'm not very good at that, but it's something.
The more you concentrate on what's happening at your corner, the easier it becomes.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, start by focusing on what you're responsible for. Don't watch the race. Watch your corner. Don't
watch just before your corner, because you need to see the cars coming into the corner.
Yeah.
If you can, watch the cars coming into the corner. And on a 3 or 4 lane track, it doesn't take too long before you can be saying to yourself, okay, they're coming through red, blue, white, green, red, blue, white, green. Okay. And after a while, it makes it a whole lot quicker,
Yeah, and also if you're looking ahead, you might notice that 2 cars are side by side, and so they might nerf each other on accident or on purpose, or that one is clearly coming up the straight way too hot and is going to end up crashing out just because they're going too fast. So you can almost be ready to catch them.
So, sorry to interrupt. Do a lot of people practice without a body on the chassis? Is that allowed in clubs?
That's why I'm saying sometimes it is, and it's a bad habit. It's nice to do it because sometimes it gives you an idea of what the chassis is doing without the influence of the body. Even Bruce McLaren used to do that with his race cars.
Right.
He used to practice it, he used to drive it without the bodywork to get a feel for the inherent balance of the car. But the problem is if there are other people on the track at the time, then they can't see the car. And it's not a good thing to do. It's dangerous.
Yeah, good one with regards to leaving a controller hooked up pretty much for any reason. If you're not at your driver's station making a car go around, maybe for if there's nobody at the track to help marshal cars when you crash, then it's not a big deal if you leave your station for the 30 seconds it takes to put your car back on because you're going right back. But for any other reason, pretty much unhook, right? Because practice time is for practicing all the lanes. Usually most guys want to take a few laps on every lane of the track, or at least, the gutters and the centers, or whatever. If you're not there, then they need to be able to access your lane that you were in. And also at the end of a heat or at the end of a race, I think for my club, this rule came about when, before the advent or usage of, regulated power supplies with plenty of amperage or batteries or whatever they were using, the Scalextric wall warts and Scalextric controllers and things like that. The rule is don't unplug your controller before the heat is over, because back then, if you unplugged your controller, the other guys would get a boost in power, and you might actually cause them to crash because they would get more power than they were expecting. These days, the rule is still there because, for our club, because we race crash and burn, the heat, for some people, the heat is over a minute before the end of the actual heat. And so sometimes in their anger and frustration, they'll unhook and walk away, which is very distracting to the drivers nearby, especially when the track requires all drivers to be, half a step away from the track. Your controller is there at the track most times, leaning over or walking forward to unhook your controller. You're physically getting in the way of their view of the car going around the track. So, rules like that are something to consider if you're, trying to formulate. If you're in a club that doesn't have any etiquette rules like that, and you're bothered by those things happening, bring it up. Say, hey, why don't we just say don't do that? Jim, you've got your hand up, and Frank does too. Jim, you go first.
Yeah, this kind of goes back to what Dennis was saying. One of the pet peeves of mine is that you have limited time between heats, minute and a half, whatever it happens to be. Some people can do it in 15 or 20 seconds. Some people, it takes the full minute and a half, it seems like. But what bugs me is when the power goes off, you go to the next lane. A lot of people in our club, when the power goes off, they want to talk to the marshal. They want to grab their tape. They want to get in their, HO, we have little pit boxes that we carry around. The first thing you do when the power goes off is unhook and move, so the next person can get on that lane. And it's kind of one of those unwritten rules. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of unwritten rules that 24 scale drivers are aware of that 32nd scale drivers aren't, just because of the way they've been brought up. One is don't leave your car on the track, especially in a corner. If you leave a car in a track in a corner, you can destroy another car. And it's not so much in 32nd because the speeds aren't quite as high, but it's still not a good thing to do. And it's very distracting. If you've got a car, even on the straightaway, the guy just leaves the car there and you're trying to practice, and all of a sudden out of the corner, you go, oh, there's a car right in front of me, I'm going to hit him. But he's just in the lane. He just hasn't taken the car off the track. So that's just a couple of kind of etiquette things that I think need to be done in most tracks.
Yeah, I agree. And when we race at Allen's track, which is usually 6 lanes, and we race in Euro rotation, which is 1-3-5-6-4-2, he set up his driver podium to be, the hookups are in 1-3-5-6-4-2 order. So although you're doing a Euro rotation, your physical movement is straight down the line. So he doesn't shout at everybody to remember this. So usually when we're racing at his track, some of the people forget to unhook their controller. They'll rush off to go move their car to the next lane and put their lane sticker on there, leaving their controller hooked up. And it's like, you know what? I don't even care anymore. I just unhook somebody's controller and move it down the line. But the first thing, unhook your controller, move your stuff over, hook up right then if you want to, but otherwise move your stuff and then go take care of your car. I like, I think it was Slot Track. I think the one that is often used for HO, doesn't it have, or it has a feature? I know some race managing programs have a feature where it has a specific amount of time from the end of one heat to the beginning of the next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's usually TrackMate.
Yeah, they all, pretty much all of them do.
That's
TrackMate does.
Yeah, so if that's becoming an issue with your club, that they're just lollygagging or whatever, turn that feature on, and 1 minute remaining, or whatever the thing does, so that they say, oh shoot, I got to get my car moved and hooked back up rather than chit chatting to Bob over there at the other corner or whatever the case may be. But yeah, that can be a point of frustration a lot of times, is getting the guys who are next up to get over to the controller hookups and hook the heck up.
Or they're still yelling at the corner marshal.
Or well, they're still yelling.
Amazing how
They're going, "Who's in? Who's in? I don't know who's in." Or one of the more common ones at EMSA races is, they'll shout out the names of who's in the heat, and then those guys will saunter over and hook up and everything, and they're standing there, but nobody put the cars on to the track for their heat, so they're all sitting there getting ready to hit the go button. There are no cars on the track because the person who was at Park Firm didn't pick them up and put them onto the track in the right slot. And then there's putting it in the wrong slot as well. That's always fun. What do you got, Frank?
Dennis brought up the fact about practice. And one thing that we do at Far Out that I really like, and I think Marco's going to do at Electric Dreams, is you get in line at one end of the row. It goes for 2 minutes, you move down the road. It goes for 2 minutes, you move down the road. And the timer is set up for that. I really like that. I raced at Buena Park and Piranha, and it's like they're guys that hog up certain lanes because they just want to get faster on that lane, and you never get to practice on it sometimes. So I really like that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, regimented or some kind
At a big event,
format.
that's the way to go.
Yeah.
There's another way that works too that we do it at fray racing. If you've got a lot of people in one track, is instead of standing in line on, say, the left and going left to right and run all 6 or 8 lanes, at the fray races, they do a line at each lane. So a lot of guys just need to test their car for one lane, or they just want to run one lane because that's their bad one. So they can usually get on that lane fairly quickly. And if they want to run the next one, they just get in the next lane. So each lane has its own line, and it works well when you have a lot of people.
Yeah, because then you got people breathing down your neck, literally right behind you, ready to go into your lane. So you're not going to be hogging the lane when there's a line behind you.
Well, the thing is, then you have the software switch the track off after a certain period. So you've got 3-minute sessions or 2-minute sessions, and then when it switches off, you don't have a choice. You have to pick up and let the guy behind you get on.
Yeah, that's something that we should probably start doing it. So, because a lot of times the host will set the DS racing timing box is what most of the guys use. They'll just set it to like 10 minutes or 100 laps or something like that for practice. And it'll turn off every once in a while, but it's not like, 2 minutes and then you are required to unhook and, go to a different lane or let somebody else in or whatever. That's certainly something worth having the guys talk about. Luff, you got your hand up.
We do that all the time. It's the rotation. You'd set a 2-minute rotation for practice.
Yeah. And basically the same as they're not required to go in a specific order, or you were saying they do have to go down the line, huh?
Most places you just go down the line, but at the fray races, then you can get in any lane.
Okay,
you just do one lane at a time, and you can, if you want to run that lane 10 times, you just get back in that lane.
Yeah.
So you have the choice of which lane you want to run, and it gets more people on the track quicker. They won't run the whole track, but they'll get on the track quicker.
Yeah. Left, what about you?
We had a few 5-lane tracks, and I spent probably an hour with a graph paper trying to figure out that you don't want to be beside the same guy every time you move. And it took me at least an hour to work it out. And trackmate Dan used to race with us. And I told him I'd come up with this number lane changes. And he said, "Oh, the European rotation."
So you spent arduous time and brain power to come up with something that was already being done.
Oh yeah.
It does work pretty well. It is kind of funny though. Like I said, at Alan's track, he set the controllers to be in that order, so you're actually always standing next to the same person on both sides of you for the whole time, but you're not racing.
Yeah,
that gets kind of confusing when you're trying to moan at some guy who's been taking you out.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Because the guy in the lane next to you, the guy whose car's in the lane next to you, is not standing next to you.
Yeah.
It's an interesting wiring problem too.
I'm sure he had fun with that. Yeah, because basically 1, 3, 5, 6, 4, 2 means that 1 and 2 are the furthest apart on the podium on the rostrum, but the closest, but they're adjacent lanes on the actual track. So yeah, we'll often hear somebody saying, "All right, who's that in the lane next to me?"
Yeah.
Well, Dan used to race with his truck mate, Dan, and he used to, whenever he came up with a new program, he tested it with us.
Mm-hmm. Did he add anything interesting as far as helping people through the practicing process, or marshalling etiquette, or other race etiquette type things?
On our truck, we never marshaled anything.
Oh yeah, because
mostly because of the way the trucks are built, you couldn't reach a lot of it.
So just don't crash.
Just crash and burn.
Thank you, Lef. I mean, the topic is very broad, but it's basically human behavior at your club or at your slot car track. One of the things that's in our rule book is, of course, be nice. Don't swear and be mean to the marshal and stuff like that. One of the other ones is to maintain your personal health. In so far as brushing your teeth and wearing deodorant and things like that. Some of the guys in the past.
Two words, don't stink.
Don't stink, yes. So that's just kind of a general, societal, please kind of thing. But when you're in close quarters.
Just so you know, that will never work in the game of hockey. Just saying.
It'll never work in a lot of places, and it's technically written down in our rule book. But sometimes somebody will be a little gamey. Maybe they just came from the gym or something like that. But or they have had a hard day of working in the coal mines or whatever the case may be. But when it's a regular occurrence, then you get a rule was made for a person who's that was a regular occurrence for.
I was going to mention that just from another genre, the board game and card game shops. That's probably the worst place for some of that thing is the hygiene. A lot of them have to have put up signs, and it's sad that they have to do that.
Yeah, personal hygiene. Geeks nerd culture is notorious for that. Like nerd conventions have a bad rap for that, and I'm sure it's not entirely unearned. But yeah, that's personal hygiene is one of the things in our club rule book. Big Den, you raised your virtual hand. What about you?
Yeah, well, I make a rule when I come onto the chat: video on, mic off, BO off.
Fortunately for us, we do not yet have 4D internet with smell-o-vision. I will readily admit that there are days when I don't want to do anything at all.
Yeah, but the best thing is you're about 10,000 kilometers away from me, so.
Is it okay if you smell like wintergreen?
Just don't get it anywhere near your tires.
Yeah.
Anybody else got any etiquette things they want to talk about, or?
Yeah, the whole, personal hygiene thing. I will say that there's a little known thing about me, and I will not attend a club where guys play the fart game.
The fart game? Like, just what is the fart game?
They're just some dudes just hanging them out there like, bah, and then they go, it's a bodily function. I'm like, okay, once in a while, but I'm like, you know what? No one wants to smell your gas. Not that gas, the whole race. Have some like etiquette, right? You wouldn't want to do this in an elevator unless you're that guy. And so all that stuff, generally speaking, I try to go, you know what? If my mother or my grandmother was alive and they were sitting there, would I do this, right? And I think that goes with the whole, you're in a group of other people. I'm not all paranoid about the whole social distancing thing, all that stuff. But I think that there's just certain social graces you should have whenever you're in a crowd. So you have that, but back at the marshaling tip, someone was talking about guys who just yell, and then what I do is I just hold their car up and go, hey, is this your car? Because if this is yours, I'm going to put it in a slot. Which slot do you want me to put it in, yelling guy? And
Here.
Then I don't have to say, hey, I'm not going to help you. I don't have to be that guy. I just ask them very explicit questions to help them understand I'm trying to help them get their car back in the slot. And sometimes I ask them, hey, was this your car that just crashed? So, they usually pick it up pretty quick. But, our club has a very detailed written set of rules. Like if you go on the Facebook page, you can go click on files and download this file that tells you what's legal, what every class is, what cars go in that class that are known to go in that class. And then you have a whole set of rules. And for marshaling, it's pretty much the same deal. You drive, then you marshal, and a lot of times there are just enough people on the particular track we race on at the club is a 29-foot deal that's 9 feet wide. It's got lots of curves, and there are usually 8 to 12 drivers, and there's like 14 curves. So you're usually covering a couple, and the idea is just when you're not driving, you're probably marshaling. And cleaning your tires between heats, all that kind of stuff, that's really no, not unless you want to do it in a pit stop. You can have a pit stop anytime you want, which is clean on green. But there's no clean in between. There's no tuning in between. There's none of that. If your car dies, you can have another car. But if it's discovered that your car died, I think this is important because sometimes you have a wreck and a wheel gets broke, or a guide blade goes bad or something. We ask all of our racers to check in 2 cars. I think that's a really important thing in a club. If you have a second car in the same class, have 2 of them prepped, tech them in. So if you have a failure in the middle of a race, then you're covered. If you're not covered, you're going to get a loaner from someone. It's probably not going to be a real fast loaner. I was just saying. No one's loaning out their fastest car while they're driving their second fastest car. So, that's kind of my deal on the whole club corner thing. On the club corner, though, I'll share one other piece of information, and that is one of our local high schools sent 80 history students over. They came to our club track, and we went through some stuff. And I made a little offer to the school that I would make a donation to the school under the provision that it would be used for a slot car club. And that school already has 3 slot car tracks in the physics area, but they're not used for any other purpose. So I said, if you're willing to let your students invest their time in doing more with the slot car equipment that you've paid for, then I'll make a donation to fund that club. So we have seven high school students that are ready to start their club up. I expect late next week, I'll get invited to come out and talk to their teacher advisor and write a little check and get them going. So
cool.
It'd be a pretty neat thing. So
that is cool.
Very fun thing, to see them actually take it back and go, wow, we could actually do something, and then hear them organizing, right? So that's the big deal. I think that's a big aspect of the hobby, is for people who don't do this, even as adults, once you talk about these rules for marshaling, club rules and stuff like that, just the level of organization, the understanding of how races are run at the slot car level, it really helps your knowledge when you get to a regular racetrack and you're trying to pay attention to what's happening. You get a better sense of when there's a setup time, what a tech session looks like, what's happening, why are there rules here? And they start to learn that. And then some of the race management and all that stuff is really cool for people who haven't done it before. So it's pretty neat stuff.
Yeah, and they learn that it's not just a bunch of goofing off with cars on a track. There's organizing to it. There's rules to follow. Speaking of you were talking about, you know, when a car has a failure, your clubs encourage having a spare car.
Yeah.
For my club, because we race crash and burn, and you know, sometimes that kind of stuff happens. We have a reasonable amount of time to repair your car rule, which basically means most issues are easily resolved, you know, with a little super glue in the right place, or whatever the case may be. It's usually a fairly quick, you know, braid popped loose, you know, whatever. It's usually just a couple of minutes. The hard part is knowing when they deserve those 2 minutes. Like if they think their car is fine, it raced perfectly fine in the previous heat, and then they put it on the track and pull the trigger and the car doesn't go, at what point do they get the 2 minutes, right? Because if we're racing around and their car starts off just fine and fails during the minute or 2 minutes or second minute or whatever the case may be, then that's basically considered a car failure, a crash. So we take the car off the track because it can't proceed on its own.
Yeah.
We don't restart the race. If we put the car on and it doesn't even go, half the time we end up restarting that particular heat because we have no idea what's wrong with the car, or if it's even a problem with the car. Sometimes it's a problem with the controller. They've hooked up wrong, depending on what track we're at, or an actual problem with the track. Like maybe the wires that go from the controller hookup have come loose, or you know, some other problem with the actual track. Yeah, something other than their car has gone wrong. And so, you know, if the car doesn't go, you know, straight off from the start line, we usually restart the heat, check the lane, check to make sure the controllers are hooked up right and all that jazz. And if their car turns out to have, you know, lost a wire connection or something like that, then we usually give them the reasonable amount of time, couple of minutes, to get their car back in working order, and then we start the heat over. But if everything else is fine and they start the heat and then it fails, that's racing. You know, they just don't get whatever laps they would have gotten if their car hadn't failed. But we don't do spare cars, because we have a rule in our rule book that if you switch to a different car, you lose the points you've accrued prior to that move to a different car.
Yeah.
So we often will have guys that set up more than one car so that they can pick whichever one they feel is the best before the actual, you know, race series begins. And then they have a spare one for you know, new members or people who don't have a car for whatever reason, or stuff like that. But yeah, most of the guys just have one car and hope that they don't throw a wire in the middle of a heat. Good stuff, Phil. Thanks for sharing. Does anybody else have any non-car setup related rules? Maybe you know, things that they think is interesting or cool about the race format or the people managing format. I'm not seeing anybody raising their hands or flailing uncontrollably. So maybe it's time to move on to another topic. We've still got about 20 minutes. Does anybody have anything they just want to bring up, want to get input on, want to ask the experts about, want to just talk about, or make funny faces?
I did change my backdrop here, and if you see in the background, these are a couple of Scalextric / SCX slot car motorcycles. Right?
Yeah, those ones that lean.
Yeah, they're the ones that lean in the corner. And I didn't know if anybody else has had experience with these. You know, has anyone had anything where they found the secret to making them run well? I bought like 6 of them, right? So, you know, I bought 6 of them in the last month, and kind of a little late Christmas gift for me, along with the several slot cars I got for Christmas. I haven't had a time to run a track in a long time other than at the club. But what I'm trying to figure out is, okay, when I get these things down and start actually trying to run them, because this is just a piece of track sitting on my desk right now. Anyone seen any setup on these at work? Does anyone else have experience with them?
I have the Scalextric ones that don't lean.
Yeah.
And I haven't played with the SCX ones or whatever brand that is that has the leaning feature. But I assume they have a fairly powerful magnet to help keep them to not just falling over all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of motor they have in it, but what I found with the Scalextric cars is that because of their those FF motors, the slim can, super twitchy, high RPM motors. Because of that, what I ended up doing to make them more manageable, obviously, was turn the voltage, as low as I possibly could, or because I put digital chips in mine, turned basically the throttle or the power level in the digital system down so that there was very low power, and turn the brakes off so that you were forced basically to let up on the throttle super early before you get to the turn, and then just get the smallest amount of throttle through the turn. I don't know if those cars have similar performance issues, but maybe
these are a lot less. There's a lot less motor here. I mean, these motors they're small enough where they're like an HO size. They're like a can motor in an HO, or the square motors that you found in the old Tycos or way back in the Bachmann days. So they're a much smaller motor, and the bikes themselves are much smaller, much closer to 30-second scale. I mean, you can see that's the Scalextric's IROC Camaro there in the front on the track, and then sitting right behind me, and then the next two things are the motorcycles.
Yeah, they're much smaller than the Scalextric ones.
They're much smaller and they lean. I've got the Scalextrics ones that don't lean as well, and you're right, they got plenty of motor. They got so much motor that you can almost make them do a wheelie if you get sticky enough track, right? I mean, you literally can put some tape on the track and put some double sticky tape on it, and if you get them there and you get them to pass over the rails, the problem is hardest part about getting them to wheelie, because I kept playing with them trying to get them to do it, was I had I had to put the sticky tape on part of the actual conductor rails, because that's where the tire's touching, right? And I couldn't solve that. But the thing, once you get some grip going, I started taking a little piece of tape and making little slivers of it and putting it on the rail. So I would hope to catch some voltage, as it's going over, right? To keep it moving. And then when it comes off the other side, you see the wheel lifting up, and I just couldn't quite get them to go all the way up, but they're pretty torquey. These, a lot less so. Down the straights, not a whole lot. But, I got one out of the pack, and one of the things I noticed that these were made in like 2004, 2005. So they've sat long enough where the tire spins on the rim. And so, I don't think that they were that way at the beginning, but you can tell they've gotten old, and there's a little bit of that on one of them that was not in a blister pack. Now that Repsol sign in the background is actually the blister pack that they come in. And I've got 3 that are in blister packs. Yeah, I bought 5. I've got 3 in blister packs and 2 that came in just a cardboard box. But those 2, the wheels spin a little bit. The other one I opened, the tire doesn't move on the wheel, but I haven't actually run that one yet, right? So
do the tires feel like they're still soft and would have grip if they?
Yeah. I could clean the tires up a little bit. But what I needed was just like a little bit of shoe glue or something, and just put a dab here and there on the rim.
Yeah.
Just to get the tire to bite to the rim a little bit, and then it probably run just fine. But it's kind of
and like Gary Skip was saying on his video, the first thing is tires. If the car can't put the power down from the motor to the track, then everything else is pointless. So sounds like you know where to go.
Hey, Phil.
Yeah.
Dave Kennedy talked about those recently on one of his live streams.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I intend on trying to get back to him because that's how I discovered him, was on one of his live streams. And then while he was talking, I'm a motorcycle enthusiast. So while he was talking, just like the glue you just told about, I just went and bought the glue. And I did the same thing with Kennedy. He talked about the motorcycles. I hopped on eBay, found the first ones I could buy, and just bought them. So, yeah.
Did he have any tips on making them run nicely?
No, he actually was just showing that he had them. He kind of was, somebody was saying something to him, and he said, "Yeah, I got a couple of those." And he pulled one out and put it on the track, and it ran good, right? And I went, "Wow, that actually goes pretty good." And it actually, when it went into a corner, it leaned, and when it got back on the straightaway, it straightened back up, And I thought, "Wow, that's pretty neat. Maybe they'll race a little bit better." And really, the Scalextric ones don't race bad. Once you learn to drive them, they're not great compared to cars, but anything's fun to race if you got all the same thing. And the question is, can I be in the front? That's a race, right? You can race snails if you can get them to pay attention to what you're telling them to do.
Well, let us know, how you get on with those, if just gluing the tires to the rims does the trick, or if you have to do something else.
I'll mess with them a little bit.
Yeah. Luff, Kelly, I saw you get your hand up. I want to make sure, Luff, did you have another topic you wanted to touch on, or did you have some tips for Phil or somebody else?
Me?
Yeah, you have your hand up.
Oh, I just wondered, like we used to run 3-month series, and once a month we'd have like a concourse to try and encourage people to do some modeling, and then we'd give points for that and work it into the total score for that series. I just wondered if any other clubs are doing that.
Oh, that's a good idea. My club doesn't do that, and I would always lose that. I would just have Pat, it's like, Pat gets the prize for doing my car for me. I want to get to Kelly before we run out of time, though. We've got about a little less than 15 minutes. What do you want to talk about or ask about, Kelly?
I was wondering, do anybody have any good links for decals? I know about Paddles and IndyCal, but do anybody have any other websites that they go to purchase decals?
Specifically for NASCAR?
NASCAR, classic cars, American muscle cars. Just any decal, it doesn't matter.
Iceman,
yeah, Mr. McKenzie. Did he officially go back into business? I know he was kind of talking about maybe getting back into it, but I haven't really seen anything.
Yeah.
So maybe if he joins in, or next time he joins in, we'll ask him if he's ready to start doing custom decals again for people for money. Big Den mentioned somebody in the UK, because I know Pados is down under, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in Australia.
Yeah. Kevin Oz, pretty much, I'd say 90% of his stuff is historic and current Formula One. I think he's got a mellow yellow. That's about the only the mellow yellow Thunderbird or whatever it is. That's about the only one I can think of in his NASCAR in his catalog.
Yeah. Nobody else? Nobody? Bueller? Sorry, I can't help. I try to avoid that. Well, hopefully somebody out there in YouTube land will have a tip for.
I bought a few decals on Electric Dreams. So I don't really know who the brand was. I just bought them, right? They just showed up. Maybe Dennis has some insight there.
Electric Dreams has a pretty big collection of decals from all kinds of manufacturers. So, go have a look at the website. You'll find quite a lot of stuff there. I don't carry a lot of information in my head about all the decals that they have there, but I just do know that if you look on the website, you're going to find a lot of different ones from a bunch of different manufacturers, including some that are replicas of replica decals from the 60s.
And John Weber was saying Atalaya, but there aren't they mostly?
Yeah, Atalaya is a Spanish company, so most of that is modern, or if it's not, it's for the NSR generic F1s for the polycar modern generic monoposto. They're starting to make them for the Scale Auto generic F1.
But mostly F1.
No, it's not mostly F1. They've got a lot of GT3 and LMP and things like that. But I don't know that there's any NASCAR, for example, because they don't know about NASCAR in Spain. But yeah, they're really nice decals.
Do they know? I'm sure they know about it. I'm pretty sure Alan has a pretty big container full of decals, and he never gets rid of anything. So it's entirely possible that he's got some old NASCAR or muscle car decals in his stash. So it'd certainly be worth sending an email or giving a phone call to Alan at 132slotcar.us and seeing if he's got anything in his stash. Might take a little time.
Corner's got a bunch of stuff too.
What was that, Lef?
Slot Car Corner.
There you go, Slot Car Corner. You could check them out. I don't know. All right, well, we're down to the last few minutes. Anybody got anything else they want to bring up or circle back on? Otherwise, we'll.
But I just, and I don't know how I missed this one, but looks like we lost Nick at Super Tires. I don't know if that was ever mentioned in a previous chat.
That was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, but Nick at Super Tires passed, and no word yet that I found whether anybody else was going to pick up and continue. But he's a pretty good producer of a lot of tires. And he was doing some urethanes and some silicone stuff. And the thing is, you always want the hobby to have these folks, because the more the merrier, right? The selection gets greater, and it gets easier for people to get tires or get parts and components, and that makes the hobby stronger. But apparently we lost him, and then I just noticed that because I went on the Super Tires website this evening, and there's the opening page is his homepage at supertires.com indicates that he had passed on the 28th, and that they were selling out of stock. But basically, check your dealer if you're looking for Super Tires. So that's kind of a deal there. But I also heard this week that Skate Electric's CEO or Hornby CEO just stepped down. So I don't know if anyone had heard anything on that, or if our slot car brothers and sisters over on the other side of the ocean from the U.S., anybody over in England or Australia, in the area over there, there's Wayne. Maybe he's got the lowdown for us.
Are you talking about Simon, who moved from brand manager up to Skate Electric manager, or?
He was the assistant brand manager, and now he's the full-on brand manager. But no, the actual CEO of the company
of Hornby
apparently in this whole shuffle, Simon got moved up one step, but I hadn't really heard much about other things that were happening. And obviously, if the 800-pound gorilla in the room sneezes, a few people's shoulders are going to get wet, and
well, apparently Dave talked about it, and
he did. He talked about it on one of his Friday news things as well.
Yeah, I'll bounce out and see if I can catch him. It's been a little spotty here to be online looking at stuff a lot lately. But
I think I caught that Dave's Slot Car News where he talked about that one, not if he talked about it on the Sunday chat, but on his news thing. Okay. And basically it's going to be a wait and see what happens kind of situation.
Yeah.
It didn't sound as though there was some major drama going on. It just sounded like maybe the guy was moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't expect drama. I just thought, maybe somebody heard something or heard
Like he's
that,
taking the place.
maybe the next guy is more of a slot car guy. It's just fun to hear that. But
New guy is supposed to be a 1-to-1 racer, John Weber says. So yeah, if there's some racing pedigree, that'll certainly help the electric side of things.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Simon is a racer. He races. He's got a Miata or two that he races, so should be pretty cool to see what he's up to.
Well, on that note, I think we can go ahead and hit the stop button, and we look forward to chatting again next week, and hopefully see other people joining us next week and in the future. Bye. Bye.